Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GBay99. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we have a pretty fun question for you. Does the idea of true ELO really exist? But before we get into that, we actually have a word from our sponsor. I haven't taken a sponsorship in the past 3 years. Please don't hate me. This video is brought to you by LOLSUMO. LOLSUMO is an app on iOS and Android that you can use to help improve at League of Legends. The app has a whole host of features like giving you live builds, tips, and strategies, letting you know how you should play an upcoming game of League, all while just in the loading screen for a game. This game in particular, I was playing Lucian bot lane against an Ashe AD carry and Ryze support, and since I didn't know what the hell I was doing, being auto-filled myself, LOLSUMO gave me some tips to at least survive the laning phase. The thing I really like about this app though is how detailed it is in the stats it records for you. It's kind of like my Road to Masters notepad, but actually good. It will record your stats with champions, showing you how you did in each lane, how you did with each champion, as well as each phase of the game, assigning ratings that you can use to sort of measure your improvements. But it will also show you the analysis of every game you play and assign you an overall rating, as well as ratings for each individual thing that you should be focusing on. You can compare yourself to pros to see how much better they are at these elements of the game, really highlighting what you need to work on, or if you want, you could just compare yourself to friends and remind yourself that you're a much better Camille player than Red Mercy. Some of the features here are from a premium version, but it's still got a free version with tons of info. A seriously good app that I could not be more proud is my first sponsor in forever. Definitely check them out, show them some love. There'll be a link in the description. But anyway, back to the video. So does the idea of true ELO really exist? Or another way to phrase it, I suppose, could be, can you actually be better than the rating you're currently given in League of Legends? This is the sort of thing a lot of players will cry about and will use as an excuse for why they should be challengers, saying that they're just unlucky and get so many bad teammates. These players contend that they're better than what their rating currently shows, and they typically get laughed at because that's a little bit of a jerk thing to do, but there's actually a bit of truth in that idea. Basically, the concept of true ELO is what they're talking about, and for those of you not familiar with that phrase, in League of Legends, because there's so much randomness involved, you have to play a large number of games to get a sample size big enough to accurately measure how good you are. If you just play 20 ranked games and then use whatever rating you end up with to measure your skill, that could have very easily been a poor statistic to do so, because you could have gotten lucky or unlucky in those 20 games. That's a very small number of games to play, and if you did have some sort of lucky or unlucky streak, your rating isn't accurately representing how good you actually are, your true ELO or your true rating. This isn't something that's made up. You can actually see this if you watch a Challenger tier player climb back to Challenger every year after the season reset. It takes them a month or more of daily League of Legends play to get back up to Challenger. Not only do they have to play enough games to get the ELO to climb the ladder, but you'll see, although most of the players typically have 100% win ratios in the lower ratings, if they have to play with bronze, silver, gold, or platinum players, when they get closer and closer to their true rating, they will lose some matches because of bad luck. The skill gap gets smaller and smaller, so they can't just breeze through games carrying teammates with ease, so they might have a streak of unlucky games and may get stuck in Master Tier or get stuck in mid to upper Diamond. They'll eventually get back up to Challenger with enough games, but they have to play enough games. Some players use this as an excuse for every rating, saying that they aren't a higher tier because they don't get to play enough, or because they have an unlucky streak of games and they're just getting all these bad teammates. Players who say that they deserve to be Master or Diamond or Challenger when they are in fact Silver, yeah, they're just filled with delusions of grandeur, but it's certainly possible for a Gold 3 player to have the skill level of a Gold 2 player or a Gold 1 player, but just need to grind out the games to get there. Typically, this doesn't affect too much since it's such a small difference in rating, but sometimes you could be on the edge of jumping tiers. A Silver 1 player, for instance, may have the skill level of a Gold 5, but if they don't get out to grind the games, they won't get their end of season rewards. I mean, I won't lie, I sure as hell have done this before, knowing that I'm a D5 player when I'm stuck in Plat 1 after a season reset or something, but lately I've been rethinking the idea of true ELO and what it is your rating is really measuring in the first place. In the poker community, there's an almost identical discussion that's constantly going on, debating whether or not a poker player can find their true win rate or true expected income for those who only play live poker. You see, because poker is such a luck-oriented game, or another word that might even be more appropriate would be a game that involves so much randomness, things don't always turn out the way they should. Sometimes a player plays very well but ends up losing because of bad luck, and sometimes a player will play very badly but end up winning because of crazy good luck. To get an accurate sample size and measure how well you're playing in the long term, most poker players say you need somewhere around 1,000 hours, if not more, of experience at a live poker table. Again, this is only if you're playing live. Online poker is a little bit different. Only when you have a large enough sample size can you measure how much you're actually winning, which poker players measure by how many big blinds they win per hour, sometimes how many big blinds they win per 100 hands. But when you think about the process of putting in those hours, a full 1,000 hours of practice, you can definitely have some problems coming up in getting accurate data. If you play 500 hours of live poker, for instance, you're going to hopefully be improving as you go, and by the end of that 500 hours, you're going to be much better than you were at the start. You aren't playing statically without improving, getting better or worse as time goes on. So if you're measuring 1,000 hours of play, the second half of that 1,000 hours is going to be much different than the first half. You aren't going to be playing with the same skill level the entire way, and at the end of it all, you might get some number that says you're making something like 5 big blinds per hour, but in reality, you're playing much better than a player that makes 5 big blinds per hour because you just put in 1,000 hours of practice and you're playing much better than you were at the start, which is where half of your data is coming from. This also doesn't account for stuff like what if 100 of those practice hours you're playing while inebriated, drunk, or hungover. I mean, that's going to drag down the win rate quite a bit because you're probably playing worse, but does that mean you're actually a worse player? You'll have a higher win rate and play much better when you're sober after all. There's so many elements that go into a live poker game. Who you're playing against, how quickly the players at your table are going, whether you're sober or not, all on top of the luck-oriented elements of the game itself. A lot of players will say it's nearly impossible to measure your true win rate. If you have a large enough number of hands to see most of these variables minimalized, you'll change so much as a player throughout that practice time that the data won't be all that relevant or useful to you now. Bringing this back to League of Legends, you could very easily apply things in a similar way, because as many random elements as there are in a poker game, there's even more in League. The biggest one is how good are your teammates and how good is the enemy team you're playing against. That's the first one that comes to everyone's mind, but think about some of the others. What if you're only good at one role, but you get your secondary or you get autofilled in 20% of your games? What if you're only good at one or two particular champions and you only get to play them 60% of the games you play due to either being picked, banned, or maybe not getting your role? Or what if you play well drunk in some of your games, or maybe some of your games you try new champions or roles that you aren't as good at it as others? With all the elements in League, some of them random, some of them your choices, you have a huge bundle of things other than your pure talent which are affecting games and whether you win or lose, and ultimately ends up affecting your rating. It calls into question how many games you have to play to find out that true rating, which, like in poker, if it takes hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of games and you're improving throughout all of them, is that rating super representative of your current skill by the end of it? These sorts of things are just a fraction of the number of excuses a player can make for why they aren't higher rated, and in theory, there could be a little bit of truth to all of them. Solo queue doesn't entirely measure the raw skill and knowledge a player has with their rating. So I think it might be time that we start thinking about the League of Legends rating system a little bit differently. In League of Legends, your solo queue rating is not about showing how well you can perform. It's about showing how well you did perform throughout however many games you've played. If you're in gold after 50 games played, that means you've played at least at a gold level over the past 50 games. You might have played as well as a gold player in your past 50 games, or even better, possibly you could continue climbing, but you'll have to play more games to find out. It's certainly possible after 200 games played, this player is better than just Diamond 5, which is where his rating's at right now. 200 games is a long time, and he could have learned quite a bit about improving his play in that time, meaning that if he uses the knowledge he's acquired, he could hold his own if he was placed into a game with Diamond 4s or Diamond 3s. He might even be able to grind out another 200 games to mitigate all the randomness of solo queue and eventually climb up to those higher ratings just without any improvement, just from using what he's learned. However, over these past 200 games, games, over the past 200 games of work he's put in, this is what the solo queue rating has determined he's averaged out to. Climbing the solo queue ladder isn't entirely representative of how good you can be. Solo queue is like its own separate game with its own separate strategies. Rather, solo queue is about putting your talent to the test. It's entirely up to you how seriously you want to take it. If you can't take the frustration of how many games you need to grind out to get the rating you desire, that's perfectly okay and perfectly understandable if you don't want to play ranked. But you can't say that you deserve to be gold, or that you deserve to be diamond, or whatever rating you think you could get to if you theoretically put in the work, because you haven't put in the work. And there's plenty of others who have. Plenty of others who not only have the same skill level as you, but have also put in the work to test how far they could take themselves and prove that skill level in a hostile environment. Your rating isn't about showing off how much knowledge or skill you have at the game. It's about showing off how far you can carry yourself with the knowledge and skill that you have. That's what grinding solo queue is all about, Charlie Brown. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching today's video. A little bit of an unusual video, but hey, maybe you still had fun. If you did, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and all that. If you didn't, feel free to leave a dislike and a nasty comment telling me to kill myself. Either way, I appreciate you making it all the way to the end of this video. I'll see you all tomorrow, but until then, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.